Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you, Maria. Thank you,
Uh,
Kathleen.
it's Kathleen. I'm so sorry. Anne Marie just called me and we all set now?
It appears we are. Let's see, is Bourne TV on?
It
Yep.
is.
Yes, we are. Okay, we're all set.
All
So,
right, Bob, I'm going to turn over host duties to you.
okay,
And I just made you the host. And
okay,
now I'm going to leave your meeting. Have a good
okay.
one.
Have a good day. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Okay, good morning, everybody. A little hiatus there, but I think we're in good business, right? In good shape right now. Okay. We are now being broadcast and recorded by Bourne Community TV. And just a reminder for anyone else who signs on via Zoom that we're not going to monitor the Zoom chat. If you sign on to Zoom and you wish to speak, just use the icon and raise your hand, and I'll ask you to unmute at that time. Um, uh, Nobody else is on right now, so we don't have to worry about any other audio or video recording that's going on. Okay, I'm just going to do attendance for a second here. Let me just switch back. Okay, Wendy, I note that present are Jed Johnson, John Frank, yourself, Brian, and myself, as well as Bourne Community TV. Okay, let me get back to the agenda. I'm doing this on a single screen right now. The first order of business is review the minutes from our last meeting, and give me a second. I'm not going to pull them up on the screen unless anybody really wants me to. It'll take me a second here to get this. Okay.
I didn't get any emails with corrections.
I have one, and it's relatively
Okay.
minor.
Yeah,
Okay,
I
go
saw
ahead.
one thing, Wendy. I think you had Tony Contrino listed as attending the last meeting on the
Did
first, and
I?
I don't remember seeing him there.
No, he's on on the stationery. I thought I had done that,
I
but
thought
I
it
will
said none
check again.
next is his name,
Well,
so
it
that
said absent
okay.
on and public, Mr. Contrino. Okay, so I don't believe he was there. That I missed that one.
Right.
You're right. Yeah.
Okay, the one item I have is on number 5A, bead challenge, uh, clause I, the second to last line. Notably, its reliance on means. That should be medians.
You're right. I meant to do that.
Okay,
Yep, got it. I will take care of those.
okay. Other than those two changes, any other changes to be made to this? Okay, hearing none, I'll entertain a vote to approve those minutes. A motion, I
So
should say.
moved. So moved.
Okay, Wendy moves. Second, somebody?
Second,
Okay, John seconds, okay. Roll call vote. I'm going to go around the screen here. Wendy,
Aye.
John,
Aye.
Jed,
aye.
Brian,
Aye.
and me, aye. Okay, that motion is approved. Back to the agenda. Okay. Since Anne Marie isn't here, we won't have anything transmitted from the town, so there's no public correspondence to review. The next is we're going to old and ongoing business, and I'm going to turn it over to Brian to give a summary of where we are with the continuing saga of the bead challenge.
Oh God, where to begin? So, the first 3 of 4 office hours have been wasted just trying to get visibility to the data. And to be fair, I still don't have 100% confidence we have full visibility. So it appears, if MBI is to believe and their contractors who did some of the work, which have a track record of making mistakes, you know, presuming that what they've published is accurate, there's only about six challenges that we would want to rebut in Bourne. The number feels awfully low and seems low based on the intentions of several providers. So it leads to the question, is the data even accurate? But, you know, presuming it is, there's about six we've got to rebut. They come in two flavors. There's two of them from Xfinity. One of them is in the trailer. What do we call it? What's the park on? Is it trailer park? I don't know what the correct term for that. Mobile home
Picasso's
park.
Mobile Home Park, I believe.
Yeah,
I
that
think it's
one.
called Babe's Acres.
Yeah, and we were kind of aware that Comcast doesn't really serve in there, but they're listed as served, and a single building near the front of the facility is listed on the maps as underserved.
It
And
is a mobile
Comcast,
home. I drove by it.
and it listed on their website as they can go there. So it would be advantageous if we can figure out how to rebut that. I am not exactly sure what kind of proof we can put together that they can't reach that location. The BEAD rules didn't anticipate this possibility of these reverse availability challenges where providers could go and add back locations. So there's not really good mechanisms baked into the process for this. So we'd have to get pretty creative on how do we show that location, that Comcast is issuing false information and should be rebutted.
Is this like the Mass Maritime thing where it's all one property, but it's really separate buildings?
No, that's a different problem.
Yeah.
I'll get to that.
Okay.
The
Brian,
other,
Just real quick about these six reverse challenges, if you want to call them that. It seems to me the big question is, are these the only six, or is the tip of an iceberg that MBI won't reveal to us? Or
that's what I'm terrified of. You know, like this is a very binary situation. You know, we could go through these six. You know, six is a manageable number. We could put together something pretty easy. You know, even each one of these is weird, so it's not like there's a one bulk solution. And we could rebut this, or we could just choose not to, because it's not hugely, you know, it's not a huge number that they've taken off the board. Some of them, it might be fair. Some of them might be accurately rebutted. Sorry, I'm challenged. The question is this, to your point, is this the tip of the iceberg, and are we missing large swaths of data? Given, and I brought this up with MBI yesterday, like given your contractor's track record of inaccuracies handling large sets of data, I would like the entire list of challenges be released. You know, use the BSL ID, don't put addresses on there because of the copyright restrictions with CostQuest. Don't release the PEI, just a list of BSLs that have been challenged. You know, the status, the type, and just release it so people can compare the master data list to what we've been given, because 6 doesn't seem accurate in Bourne. And they're like, well, we've heard your concern and we'll think about it. But this is the third office hours and the fourth one's coming up and they'll stall for time. So I have zero confidence in this process. I have zero confidence in MBI's ability to manage this process. This is only one of a dozen issues that remain open that they haven't fixed. I'm beginning to get a little frustrated having to pull the same list up week after week and bring it up with them, and they say, oh, we're still thinking about it, we're still having meetings on it. They continually waste continual time discussing things that should be public. It feels like a mistake in mission and management at this point in their organization. It's the only way that gets this bad. I think I'm on the 6th meeting where I've asked them to fix the Mass Maritime community anchor institutions. The director of MBI, in conversations with myself and Bob, has said, sounds like these ones meet the definition. They are state-owned universities, which are by right an institute of higher education by definition. The director has said it sounds like they meet the criteria. They still have not fixed the challenges and approved them. After 6 separate meetings reminding them to do so and that by their own logic it should qualify. And they say, oh, we still need to debate how does it work with a community anchor where they have multiple buildings. And they're saying if it's all multiple buildings in the same parcel, they shouldn't have to add locations. But I said, well, these parcels are not on the main campus. So, and they have separate BSL IDs. So just like every other community anchor where it has multiple BSLs and we have had to flip each building, the same logic should apply. And they're like, oh, we need to discuss it because this is different. And so they just waste weeks upon weeks discussing things that should be done in a 15-minute meeting. It doesn't make any sense at all. Like it's got its own BSL. It meets the definition. Click the approve button and move on. This issue came up again on the Roland Finney where it had 10 different BSL IDs and we had to go around each building and get it flipped. It turns out there was another challenger in Bourne that added additional CAIs. So one unexpected
No,
was
oh
added.
What were those, Brian, just real quick?
High Meadow Circle. What's
Okay,
it called?
There are two, that's Harmony Hill up at, essentially off of Route 28, Harmony Hill, and there's another condo, Harmony Circle is another, or Highland Circle is another one that's off there. Those are condo complexes, basically, or apartment complexes.
So some statewide housing trust put in a bunch of their locations and got them approved, but they only put in the main address and not all 10 PSLs. And so I brought that up with MBI again. I was like, okay, so given that no one knows what your CAI program is going to look like, but we have to correct these issues now, how are we going to handle this? And Michael Baldino asked, so why didn't they put in challenges for all 10 buildings? I said, Michael, the program is incredibly complicated. I don't think people knew that was A, an option, B, a good idea, C, necessary, D, there was no communication between challengers. So couldn't share that information with them. So you guys are going to need to come up with a policy of how do you handle these CAIs with multiple PSLs where only one of the 10 VSLs was approved. And I go, oh, we got to get back to you on that.
Okay, just for the record, because we could go on forever on this.
Forever, yeah.
Real quick, just for the record, Brian and I have talked, and there are something like 20 overarching issues like this in the whole program. The flying cat, I'm sorry. That are
Yeah, she didn't get breakfast, so
anyway,
she's complaining.
20 sets of issues like this, overarching, that they're in either have ignored or they're in some kind of high level policy discussion that they haven't gotten around to coming to a resolution on. Now, if you just want to note that for the record, Wendy, and we don't have time to go through all of
it. It could take all day, and those 20 are on top of New Bedford's list. So New Bedford did a good write-up of everything before the challenge started. So we just went from everything after it started, basically. And so
it just seems to me the explanation for this is three possibilities. One, MBI is so under-resourced that they started on this late. They didn't put enough people on it. They never thought the whole thing through very well. They never touched base with other states that were ahead of Massachusetts to find out what best practices were. So now they're in the middle of it, and all of these glitches are coming up, and what do we do? What do we do? The next is they truly don't want to come up with answers, and they're playing, as they used to say in college basketball, stall ball, just passing the ball around the corners until the clock runs out. And I don't know which is which. In either case, the program isn't doing what it was intended to do, and we're going to get not get the result that that we and every other municipality were expecting out of this. So that's
Mhm.
my on my soapbox as an individual working with Brian on some of these.
I think the one that's merits the attention while we have both Jed and John here is the speed test issue. But given the way NTIA set up the model challenge, and the way MBI is implementing it, it appears that a single speed test at any time between 7 and 11 can rebut our challenges. So, and after, putting MBI on the spot that like, hey, this seems super imbalanced, that towns literally had to take untrained citizens and teach them how to run speed tests, get their bills, convince them to talk to their provider to figure out what their plan speed was, put all this in to even hope to have a challenge. And then a provider can, with an automated script with a network engineer, can reach into the modems, cherry pick all of the speed data, pick a single moment in time where it's working and rebut it, essentially makes it so no one can sustain a speed challenge. And with some grumbling, they've apparently said they made a mistake when saying it was one speed test, it's 3. So, but basically they need to pick 3 moments in time. So it's a distinction without a difference. It makes no difference here. Like, okay, you got 3 days in a row where it's up for 1 nanosecond during the day between 7 and 11. You can grab that and rebut it in an automated fashion from the modem with all the resources you have. It seemed super imbalanced level of effort wise to challenge, and with rebuttals being trivial. I'm guessing a script could be run and someone could get this data from every single modem in the state in hours and report back to MBI that we are serving everybody and everything's fine here.
And even
Right.
for the ones that glitch, even for the ones that are below the 120, just run it the next night and try again. Keep trying over the challenge period until you get 3 tests that that show you're at your advertised speed or above 100/20.
Yeah, and then it's immediately, so it renders the speed challenges defective, just from a policy level. If for an area with unstable speeds, so the point of the speed challenge was the provider says we serve better than 100/20, and you submit a speed test that they don't. That works in an area where they're straight up lying, where the system cannot deliver a speed ever. It does not work in a place with unstable speed. So with the unstable speed situation, the rules should have been written entirely different to take into account this scenario where you have to show that X percentage of the time you are above the speed and you don't go down more than X number of times a day kind of thing. That should have been the level of evidence on a rebuttal, given how hard it was for towns to mount these challenges. The rebuttal standards should have been much, much higher, in my opinion. And if we're ever pressed for that, I feel like Jed or John could put together that into technical language of what would have been fair. But this situation is trivial for them to, we flipped one census block group in Bourne, and it's going to take seconds for the incumbent to rebut that.
Right. So I had thought about this for a long time because I saw that too back when the NTIA stuff came out. And just at a very high level, I was thinking the rebuttal process should be a speed test every 5 minutes for a week between 7 and 11. And then you'd get a chart of, thousands of data points. And you could see over time, basically what the behavior was. But anything short of that, I think it's going to be easy to evade, evade the challenge.
Evade is a good word for that. Well done.
Let's not read too much in terms of
Intentionality, I know,
motivation,
but it's hard to, as I went to the last the last previous office meeting, and I said, I'm not a technical person. I always say that up front, but it really feels like this is intentional.
I think I like the word
I- I-
game.
I guess,
Game
I-
is
I-
a good word for it. You can easy to game the
Yeah.
testing requirements here.
I just think that the people on the government side don't have enough experience in the industry to effectively run the program. I mean, I don't know them very well, but I'm just looking at the material that's coming out of there, and that's the sense I get. I don't think any of them would have thought of what I just mentioned, and they probably wouldn't have realized that it's such an easy thing to do for the operators. They could do it without a problem.
Would you speak to NTIA if a technical person there and
Sure.
you
Yeah.
had some time?
Yeah. I mean, I could explain that, but I mean, at this stage of the game, I mean, I don't. Anyway, yeah, sure,
Well-
of course I would. Yeah, I mean, I could because I've done this before. I mean, I've done that kind of because we had to know if our product was working.
And I can't speak for Comcast, well, kind of, but I know my experience with Verizon were that with one exception, all the testing that they did, they just did remotely. And I mean, they could do it in a matter of 30 seconds. They could generate an entire report with the history. They would tell me what modem I had, what my service was supposed to be, what I was actually getting. And it was very, very accurate.
Yeah, I could. I mean, back in the day, I could have done it from where I'm sitting right now. The test I just mentioned.
Again, we're trying to infer what the incumbents would do effectively to defend their current service. Okay, and I don't think it's unreasonable. We're not being pejorative in terms of frankly dissing these companies, but again, anticipating that this might happen. Frankly, we're in a position, other than changing a few of the rebuttals, et cetera, we can't do much between now and the 26th, the end of the program. And the proof of the pudding will be, we will see after that what actually happened.
The thing we can do between now and then is force MBI to correct their mistakes on the couple of challenges that they've incorrectly denied. And they keep stalling on.
Yeah, but again, that could be the tip, just the tip of the iceberg. A lot below the waterline that we don't know about and won't until after the fact. And I think kind of in doing an after the fact review of this, which we ought to do, write this up and let the powers that be, whoever those are, know that this did not run the way the original legislation intended it to run. And and just complain bitterly about that.
And
I think it's an embarrassment
it's
to
not
the
like
state.
it's not like we're just finding this out now. We've been talking about this for months, many months, and they've just very stubbornly refused to do anything about it.
Now, again, it's between stubbornness, lack of awareness, lack of knowledge, as Jed said, and frankly, there might be some government inertia in there. Anyway,
Yeah, and
fine.
yeah, I'm sure they have a lot going on, right? It's
Right.
there's probably
No,
tons of
understood.
other things that are interfering with them being able to deal with this. So.
I've been on calls where they couldn't answer basic technical questions. One town asked for an explanation of what latency is, and they gave them wrong answers. So I had to explain what latency is and what the implications were and which challenges mattered, because MBI could not explain latency correctly.
If there's any success of this program from municipalities trying to do this statewide, I think it's more as a result of kind of hard-learned best practices sharing among the towns. Brian being one of the keystones of this whole process, we need to point that out, that the only way we got through it is because the towns held each other's hands as we walked through the dark tunnel. Okay, with very little light coming from the agency running this. And again, our inference from some of the contractors is, they got the state agencies and other states used NTIA, some of the NTIA money to actually provide a lot more light to the entire process and assistance. So, all we can do is just see how it turns out after the fact, and if we get nothing out of this process, I think we need to describe exactly how the process went and how it was set up and how we got nothing and the ISPs got everything, or, that's I think that's the key. Okay, well, we'll try to do what we can for a couple of these challenges and then see where we go from there. But I think we just kind of have to hold our breath and see how it comes out. Okay, with that, I'm gonna wrap up the bead discussion. We'll certainly have more information at our next meeting, but Brian with me, maybe Wendy, we're gonna try to change some of these few challenges that we see here, and we will move on. It could be that a huge number get dumped on the last day, and we don't have time to work on them, and we just make notes that we saw that they all came in at the last minute, and we don't have time to work on them or the bandwidth.
Well, a clarifying thing. So we were asked the question, can you rebut a rebuttal? And
That's called a refutation.
yeah, and refutation, I guess. So we spoke to MBI about that, and there is no possibility to do so. So assuming with a big assume here that the data we have is accurate, the curveball is going to come when a major incumbent enters a bulk rebuttal for basically the whole state. Anyone who successfully did an availability challenge or a speed challenge or a CAI challenge, they're going to upload that they have 10 gig fiber to every commercial building in the state, with some kind of network map, so that they remove funding to all the locations that are CAIs or commercial buildings. So that's where the fun is going to be. And there's no ability to rebut that. We managed to prevent it in the challenge, but that could come back in a new form soon.
When that happens, if that happens, our only recourse is essentially to publicize that fact far and wide, and involve Senator Markey, who's been at the forefront of working towards broadband equity, and again, he can go and work at the NTIA level and just point out that the rules set up were by MBI and perhaps other states were biased against municipalities. Sorry for the bouncing of the camera on my lap here. We're essentially biased towards the incumbent ISPs and against anybody else trying to come in and provide competition, provide better service, yada yada yada. And that's all we can do after the fact. The money at that point will have gone out the door, and we are left essentially where we were when the whole process started. That may be the outcome, and all we can do is complain bitterly about it and just point out the detailed mechanisms of how we got there. Okay.
Yeah, the legal term that Baldino used was cure, which means that, for example, if they said, well, we're denying this particular challenge because you didn't put in enough information, you should be able to cure that by providing more information. And there is no mechanism to do that. And they're not going to have one.
Okay. Well, again, we'll watch this at our next meeting and see how this evolves. If it's to our liking, we can just claim surprise and say thank you to MBI. If it doesn't, we can tell other people that we didn't get what we should have gotten. Okay, I'm going back to the agenda here. I don't have it up. If anybody needs to see it, I can put it up. The next one is the Digital Equity Implementation Plan recommendations. And I would like to thank it looks like it's a group who got together under Jed. I presume you didn't do this all on your own.
It was me and John. It was me and
Asked
John.
for help, and let me get mine open here.
Yeah, basically, John and I passed the document back and forth, and then we got on a call at the end.
Much
Okay.
appreciated.
This looks pretty comprehensive. The only question I have is, do we have any kind of an idea of what kind of a schedule we should ask the town to work on this?
I thought I had the indication from Anne Marie that that they were going to take their time.
Yeah, I guess, so what I struggle with, Bob, is that I don't know, like, organizationally how this is going to proceed. You know what I mean? Like, we were trying to decide, so will they get local IT involved? Will they hire contractors? They're probably going to need, facilities people to run wires for cable, for internet and power. They probably got to get somebody else out to mount. I mean, it's just a lot of different pieces here. It's hard to know.
And they may want to put the outside work. I mean, we were questioning whether how many internal assets they would use in terms of people, as opposed to putting stuff out to contractors.
Yeah,
If they had to go to
exactly.
contractors, are they people that are already under contract, or do they have to put it out to bid?
Can I make one suggestion here? And this is relatively easy for them to do administratively. And that's the first step we have to get across with every single piece of this. Just make it easy for them. They have an interagency agreement or whatever with the county to provide time from the fellow's name is Hank, but there are other resources available in the county for IT support. And it may well be that the county has an on-call contractor who can do some of this. That might be a recommendation to just meet with the county, see what time people, and I don't know Hank's last name, but he's the fellow who I think he's committed to the town for 10 hours a week or something like that, to see what other time he may have available, or from somebody else who is in the county system, and what all of this he could provide advice on, or B, he already has somebody who can handle some of the hardware and other issues here as a contractor, so the town doesn't have to worry about letting contracts, administering contracts, or doing anything else. Again, trying to take the burden off the town. Certainly they're not in a position to go and put out a request for proposal. Well, they should be, but they're not in a position and can't easily put out a request for proposals to do this, frankly, because there's nobody in the administration who really knows what to ask for. That's kind of, I thought, why we were here, but we'll get to that in a little bit
Well,
here.
right, we were concerned, and I think Jed brought up this concern, and it's very valid, that we didn't want to over-direct them, because we did not want to get in the way of what their normal process of getting a job done is, because we don't really know whether or not they would just say, okay, and hand this over to Marlene, and then she would pass it along to the various departments or not. So we had a more detailed document suggesting, for instance, that they talk to whoever does the library IT and get some input from them. But we felt like we would be interfering in the process, and kind of from their new charge to us, it looked like they wanted us to kind of back off on that part of the of doing business and let them just handle it their own way. So that's why we said at the end that we'd be there willing to assist.
The other thing I'd point out, Bob, is that for the public Wi-Fi, the substantial amount of work is facilities work, not IT.
Yeah, that's true. But once again, they've got on-call contractors who do stuff like this all the time.
Right.
Low
So
voltage can be done by any electrician.
Yeah, so coming back to John's point, is they know who these people are. They already have, they've got to be like having to put in electrical outlets here and new circuits over there. And so, run a Wi-Fi cable over, an Ethernet cable to that room. It's the same group. And so they must have these people engaged already. And I just don't see us telling them how to do that.
There's probably an as-needed contract in place.
Well, you could allude to it in your suggestion. And that's not directing it. You
I
say,
guess,
well,
but
you know,
it-
we're sure you have people that can do this, but this is what they need to do. And so it's their decision as to how they use their people, but we've just let them know that we're pretty sure that the people that they have can do it.
that's kind of, yeah, I mean, I think that's kind of how the language is in there now. We just left it up to them to decide who to hire and how to get it done.
Mhm. Can you quick shoot me a copy of that? Because I don't seem to have one. If
Hmm.
and I'll use it as an attachment to the minutes.
Yep, I'll do that.
Thank you.
Wonder what happened with that. Okay.
Yeah, I know you sent it out to everybody, Jed. I mean, but
Yeah.
I have the originals and I have all the, the ones that the versions we
Yeah.
worked up to. And again, I
Yeah.
thought Jed's point was correct in that they seem to be, based on their charge, pointing us away from the idea of micromanaging how they administrate things, and just tell them, okay, I mean, the original one said locate possible vendors, renew equipment, review options for possible solutions, etc. Involve the IT person who runs the library. And then Jed pointed out, to say, they may already, the facilities department probably already has some of this stuff in place. And so that's why we put at the end that we would be available to advise them in a more detailed manner if they so wish. But it's, that's just our opinion of trying to handle this in a way that they consider proper. And I wish Anne Marie was here to kind of tell us, how the board would react.
Yeah, that'd be useful.
Well, what I will do is when we're done, I'll try to catch up with her and just get her her thoughts on this and her input. And more to the point is, how do we transmit this to the select board, and does this have the right tone? And this could be an item for discussion when we talk about our revised charge that would be coming up in September, maybe. And I was hoping to ask Anne Marie about that, but I have no input on that.
I mean,
So
we can certainly, if she requires, shoot her the earlier versions of what we came up with and just have her. But she typically said that there was no rush on this, that they were not overly concerned. So I think, getting her to kind of look it over and say what they would like and what they wouldn't like, because maybe they do want a very detailed step-by-step thing. I just didn't want to get in a position where suddenly someone becomes disturbed saying, well, wait a minute, that's not the way we've done it before. We don't know how they've done it before.
Can you say
me-
something like, this process could look like this? No, and that doesn't say it has to, or you better make sure it does. It just says, this is what it could look like. And
So-
they could either say, oh, well, that's a good idea, or they could say, oh, well, we've already got somebody on it. And that's the end of it.
Well, let me propose that we stop here and then reconvene with Anne Marie at the next meeting to get her input as to sort of the tone of this and essentially also the level of discussion here.
Okay.
One thing I did want to point out that Jed and I both agreed on, and this was one of my pet peeves, was that this is really a small amount of money. And we were both concerned that they might give some projects short shrift to try to spread the money out.
That was the first I tried to address that in the first paragraph.
Right, and you did.
Right.
But just to point, because we didn't discuss that, and the idea was simply that I was concerned, and so was Jed, that they might perhaps do not as good a job as they could have in the library, and we kind of felt that it's better to do one project really well than 3 projects in a mediocre manner. And I think between 70 and 100,000, they could do a bang up job at the library. And if there was money left over, maybe they could put it at the at the town, add some more locations, maybe the town building in Buzzards Bay or the community center or someplace else. But this could, again, would be mostly labor, could cost them a fair amount of money to, wire all the additional Wi-Fi access points and the electrical stuff that's involved. And, particularly with older buildings, running stuff through walls is not always a slam dunk. So those bills can add up pretty fast. So that was our concern.
Yeah,
Hey,
so
I have an
suggest-
idea here about this, just in terms of Wi-Fi. And again, we've been dealing with the 4 public housing units on and off via coming in from a number of different directions. One part of this could be for each one of the housing units, put in some kind of a central FWA, fixed Wi-Fi access. Okay, so that it doesn't have to have a long range, but give the residents access via Wi-Fi, within from some central pole-mounted transmitter that covers all or most of the properties, or
well,
where
that
they
would be,
go
yeah,
in
I
and-
mean, right. I mean, that would be if we did something in a public housing area, but that wasn't covered as part of this.
So the public
wasn't a part of
housing
the
has its
CPC.
own grants where
Yeah, that's a separate
they're trying to
grant,
do
yeah.
wired to the unit fiber. So
Well, there are
Um,
targeted grants, but what about the ones that frankly don't get funded? And I'm guessing there's going to be a number of those.
Right, but
I-
that wasn't covered under the digital equity plan.
That's what I was going to say. The select board seem to be saying
Yeah.
we want to stay with the Cape Cod Commission's digital equity plan.
Okay,
That's what we want to go. They want to go by that.
Yeah, so
Okay.
so basically we just took we took the original recommendations that we did about 3 months ago, maybe even longer now. And what John and I did is we just drilled down and put bullet points underneath what we'd already proposed. So like I said, I think, why don't we come back to this in 2 weeks with Anne Marie and see what, get her input on this, and because I don't think we need to get it to the select board until the end of the month.
right. Okay.
Okay.
Since we've discussed it, should it be attached to the minutes?
Yeah, I sent it to Wendy.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we
okay.
should. Thank you.
Okay, well, again,
ever since
Jed
the
and
challenge
John,
period. Yeah.
thank
Ever
you
since the-
for the amplification you did on our past recommendations.
Thank you. Ever since the challenge period was over, oddly, our internet has gone all to heck around here, so I did
Okay.
not get that earlier. I mean, it was like, bingo, challenge period's over. Never mind Barlow's Landing Road anymore.
Okay, that's an aside,
Yes.
not something on our agenda. So,
Right.
we'll have to deal with that individually, I guess. Sorry about that with T-Mobile. Let's see. And by the way, one other aspect of this, and just to go back to the bead challenge, I got a little bit of intelligence that Verizon is in fact waiting for quote grant money kind of all around at least southeastern Massachusetts to determine where they expand FiOS. And for what it's worth, they have there's some talk that there's a cell phone tower that's going to go at 317 Barlow's Landing Road, way in the back, right on top of the railroad station, and in fact that will that's going to be one of the places where at least one of the incumbents is probably going to provide fixed wireless access, according to one person in one of these companies. So we'll just
maybe
leave
we
it
want
at
to
that.
clarify the level of roamer, since, whenever we approach higher level people at Verizon, they deny having any ambitions in Bourne versus,
This is all in, from the future that the installers have been told. This is just telling them this is what they need to get ready for and plan for, in terms of months down the road, having allocation of people, et cetera, to go out and do this.
That'd
So,
be nice.
Just as
this is not at the high level strategy, et cetera, at all, but just in terms of the boots on the ground.
So just another data point to align with that. So the Cape Cod Commission has to approve a number of these towers that goes up. They call them monopoles in some cases. If you go to the Cape Cod Commission website and look at projects, you'll see a number of them in there. There's about 3 monopoles going up between Gifford Street and Falmouth and North Falmouth. So that kind of aligns with what you heard, Bob.
Okay, this tower is going to be, a full-blown cell tower. The owner of the property is, frankly, is trying to get provider tenants to say that they want to rent space on it.
Yep.
And this is going to be akin to what's next to Somerset Creamery, for those of
Mhm.
you who know that.
Yep,
That's,
yep,
that's well,
Probably
more
American
osprey nests.
Tower and
yep.
So is there a tower already there and they're looking to get
No.
tenants,
There's
or are they?
nothing. There's nothing there. Kind of. I don't know precisely how it went in and whose property exactly it's on, but on the border of the railroad property, a set of empty conduits was just put in all the way down to the back of the property.
Interesting. So there is a mechanism under BEAD that we haven't discussed because it's not, there's very little to discuss right now. It's called the ultra high cost location threshold. And each state has to set it based upon their cost per passings. They'll basically line them up as percentiles and pick a range where they consider, hey, this top, say, 2% is going to burn up all the money. And so let's get more creative on these locations so that, serving the last percentile doesn't take away all the funds. So you're allowed to get creative and possibly use FWA for the ultra high cost locations. So we should probably monitor this tower as part of our overall keeping an eye on the grants. So we might need to add this as a line item and keep an eye on this because it could be how someone serves Bassett's. It's one way.
Yeah,
So-
you could put that in the minutes back under
Right.
BEAD.
And I have something
Apologize.
too. This morning, just by coincidence, my wife and I, we're both AT&T cell phone users. So we received a text, which I rarely get from them except when the bill gets paid, saying, "Good news, we added a new tower in Buzzards Bay on Wagner Way." And it's actually, if you look at the map, it's actually up in Sagamore. Looks like it's near the Sagamore Bridge. And it says, "We built a new cell tower nearby a few weeks ago on Wagner Way. That means doing more of the things you love in more places." So I don't know what is going on there, if they are also planning to get into the FWA business, or this is just trying to promote their overall service.
That's the
Wait,
water
is this
tower.
on the other side of the canal or is it on this side of the canal?
It's on this side of the canal, according to the map they sent me.
Interesting. So-
Wagner Way is the Buzzards Bay water tower. It's right across from Town Hall, behind Metzaluna.
Okay, because here the picture they showed me shows it being on this side, but either way, they're expanding their access.
Okay, well, as I said,
better backbone, better middle mile. And I heard rumors there was an additional middle mile provider trying to reach that area. So I think it was First Light or something like that name was trying to make a play to get some more middle mile closer to the canal. So that's all I know. We'd have to reach out to them, and maybe that's a reason to reach out to First Light now and see if they've made progress on their plans. Because AT&T might want to not be using Crown Castle so that they don't have the same cost structure as everybody else.
Another data point from this Verizon contact, he said that Verizon and AT&T have entered into an agreement for some municipalities where they are going to share fiber, okay, to serve their customers, and in some of the locations where there are clearly underserved areas. Whether they offer both services over the same fiber, so a customer can choose A or B, or it's only it's your current service, but it has to go through this common fiber. So just a piece of data. Okay, I'm going to move along next to the American Connection Corps intern. Nothing new at all to report on that. Again, as I recall from the last time, the county has no capacity to host one this year. we have not asked MBI about whether they in fact could support this, because we've got enough other issues in talking to MBI right now. They're overwhelmed.
Do we
So,
need to continue to carry this on the agenda?
I don't think we need to. For the
So
time
actually,
being.
the one question is we don't know which MBI staff is assigned to this. I think they work with Josh, and Josh is not involved with Beat or Gap, so he actually might have capacity. So oddly enough, we should probably
Wow.
circle back with the Connection Core and ask who their contact is at MBI managing this before we completely write this off.
Okay. Once again, the connection to digital equity here is a staffer funded through the American Connection Corps, could in fact be a resource that the town could draw upon for digital navigator services. You know, it'd be nice to keep this live, and it will. If it comes up again for application next year, it will be live during the term of this digital equity implementation grant that the town has. Okay, moving forward. Open meeting law definition. Again, what we have heard is that this has to do with, quote, side groups or subcommittees. And a subcommittee, again, is something that is subject to the open meeting law. But the chair or maybe individual volunteers could offer to work on sub-issues, work individually, and if they need to, they could draw in the help of one or two other members of the committee without actually forming a subcommittee that's been approved by the main committee. Is everybody sort of clear on that?
Yeah, right. So just, from what I read, I think the key here is if the committee goes and assigns another group to go do some work, then that group is covered under open meeting law, whether it's subcommittee or whatever you want to call it. But if the committee puts a group together and says go do work, they're covered under open meeting law. If the committee assigns a member, an individual member, to go do some work, that individual member can draw on other members of the committee to get the work done without being subject to open meeting law, as long as they don't draw in a quorum.
Okay, this is the exact model for this, Jed, is what you just did in terms of putting the digital equity
Totally.
plan together and drawing in John for his advice and counsel and edits.
Totally. Yeah.
Okay. And
so Wendy, I don't know did you get the email I sent on this? You could, I mean, it might be worth attaching to the minutes.
Yeah, that would be. Let me see.
Because I thought the stuff on the website was dead on. I mean, it's very clear.
Okay, if you have that handy, send it to me again, and I
okay,
will attach that to the minutes too.
Yep.
Okay. And once again, you know, we're now on the record on in our minutes and on Bourne TV as to how we will operate and how, you know, in the recent past we have operated. The same way with a lot of the challenge work. Brian has taken the lead on that and called in Wendy or me when particular advice is needed on particular parts of the many moving parts of that. And
Right.
you know, so there hasn't been what they called a serial deliberation or serial consultation, where a document gets passed around to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of us and back to the lead. It's been much more restricted than that and much
Right.
more informal.
Yeah,
Okay.
as long as you keep that loop under a quorum, and as
Right.
long as only a single individual was assigned the task, then you can operate outside of open meeting law. All right, so should I take this off? We're done with this one?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, the next is liaison with the Tech Council. And they have been during the, except for yesterday, they've been holding weekly kind of information sharing meetings that frankly haven't, have basically kind of, my impression is, regurgitated some of the same complaints that Brian so eloquently expressed earlier, but kind of no real solutions. And in the last, the the one that's happened since our last meeting? Brian, do you recall anything specific that was in that discussion group?
So given that we kind of took the lead on the Cape on the challenge, it's usually been us disseminating information to other towns, and when MBI is not being helpful, amplifying the concerns, since essentially if we're struggling with it, every town is struggling with it. So mostly it's been a political amplifier for Bourne's concerns. So it's good use of our time, and we can help other towns. And it's been useful for making connections with other towns when trying to approach MBI. You can say, hey, this town's having the problem, this town's having a problem, this town's having a problem. You know, it's not just one town, we need an answer. During the challenge period, we learned a lot more, since there were a lot more participants in the challenge than the rebuttal.
One part of this during the challenge period actually has been, and I think this is a very salutary result, is that we've been in better communication with Open Cape. Okay, and we have a lot better idea of how they work. They have a better idea of where they can help, and also right now where they can't help, and they seem less prone to try to overreach without a lot of planning. So I think that's been a very good result.
Yeah,
and
they've
that's-
added some good people, and we know who on their team to go to now. So it's helped alleviate the bottleneck issue where everything always had to go through the CEO. So we know individually who has like what lane, so to speak, a lot better now than we did in the past. So it's been
And they
helpful.
also are working closely with the Cape Cod Commission. You know, their information sharing and you know, in terms of GIS and other capabilities that David Still and the team there have, and with Steve Tupper. So I think that's very good, and the commission continues to be absolutely neutral in terms of dealing with Open Cape versus other, what would you'd call middle mile competitors. So so that's worked out well. Okay, I'm going to move on now to Mass Broadband Coalition. Bob Espandola has been trying to call another meeting of that group, and it's been canceled for a couple of times, and I frankly have lost track of that. Brian, have you seen any indications of a upcoming meeting?
They had one, but the wrong link was sent out, and so people were all on different calls. Each cancellation had a different and valid reason.
Yeah.
So
So in
we've
terms
had
of
more
that,
direct
you know,
contact with members.
nothing substantive has happened on that.
Well,
I
New
was-
Bedford's issued some letters that have been starting to be widely circulated. A couple other towns as well within the
Right.
coalition, since it's a very loose coalition as opposed to a more formal one. So
Right. And I'm going to move on to a liaison with other towns, and Jed, you've sent on links to a couple of articles in the Falmouth Enterprise about the Falmouth program. And Wendy, if you could send the links, not the actual text because it's copyrighted, but the links to Wendy so she can embed them in the minutes, I think that'd be very useful. But for the benefit of anybody listening to the live on TV or to the recordings, if you could give a 2-minute summary of where things are in Falmouth.
Right. So the problem with the links is they go behind a paywall.
Yeah.
So that's why I always send the PDFs, Bob.
Well, that's okay for us, but in terms of broadly circulating the minutes, you know, if anybody absolutely needs that, we can provide access.
Well, no, they're gonna get hit by a paywall.
Well, I realize, but you know, we can find a way to get them the information. For instance, the select board reads it. They've all got subscriptions to the enterprise.
Oh, I see. So send it out, and those who have a subscription can get through. Okay. All right. I'll send the links. Yep.
Yeah.
Would it be
Meanwhile-
would it be permissible for if somebody contacts us directly, we could send them the copy of the PDF?
Sure. I think that's okay. I just don't think that we need to be broadcasting copyright material to the public.
Well, for what it's worth, I already put it up on the Facebook page.
So, I mean, I always view sharing a PDF the same as sharing your copy of the morning paper with your neighbor, you know what I mean? I
Yeah.
don't think there's much different than that. But anyway, coming back to your what you asked for, Bob. So one article was really just an overview of where the MLP is today. And they kind of went through, and there's nothing new in there that I haven't brought up and discussed with everybody. The only thing, I guess the only thing I'll mention is the CTC contract with Falmouth Net. They've talked to Bonfire and New England Broadband, and they've got one more interview to go with Whip City Fiber before they start working on their report. That was kind of the one thing in there. The other article was about bonding and funding. So the MLP has no line of sight to funding. They went to the town and asked the town how to raise money, and the town said, we're not interested in borrowing for you guys. So you're on your own. And that's kind of where that stands at this point.
Right. And there was someone there, I just wanted to bring this, there was one technical thing that came up, and I don't remember if it was an objection from the MLP or someone else regarding investing all this money in fiber because it might be obsolete in 5 or 10 years. Satellite could come along, and Jed and I'm sure we're both laughing. Satellite is a thing of the past, and it has many, many limitations. And it's great if you're in the middle of someplace, some farmland in Nebraska, someplace where there's nothing for miles. It's the only alternative. But satellite is very inferior to fiber. Fiber is by far the future and will be for many decades.
Yeah, I thought David Eisenberg handled that well.
He did, but when I saw that, I just about fell off my chair. But this is the state sometimes you have to deal with.
The only even out in the laboratory level concern was like the move to hollow fiber instead of solid fiber to get to like the stupidly high speeds 20, 30 years out. But they've recently dropped non-visible light spectrums that they're running through the solid fiber. So you've just completely opened up massive amounts of options to the existing fiber for our lifetime. As long as it doesn't crack, it's going to be upgradable, basically.
Right.
For negligible.
So just to summarize, basically, the MLP is kind of just on hold until the CTC report comes out, and they're back to the drawing board on how to raise money.
What they were concerned with was, that they have this 10-year plan for, bonding, investing, and handling debt. And if you add all of this debt into that picture, what does that do to the town bond rating?
Right. The town's not gonna, the town was I thought was pretty direct in their answer, or as direct as they're gonna get in public. Not gonna happen, was their answer.
Yeah.
Well, so the one financial thing to consider, and I know, their answer is it's not going to happen. When you add an asset, it increases a revenue generating asset increases your ability to borrow. So some of that asset increase, also allows for a certain amount of debt increase at the same time without affecting their bond rating. So the exact amount will come down to a lot of specifics and a lot of detail, but it's not like a zero-sum game here. The borrowing pie increases as assets come online. So it's
all right.
Yeah, just go ahead, Jed.
I was gonna say, so the only other town that's got anything going on, Wellfleet's meeting today. And on their agenda, they noted that their network is out to the beaches is operational. And that on the agenda is basically the discussion of how they hand it over to the town agencies, public safety, fire, et cetera. Interestingly, further down on the agenda, they're going to now discuss how to open it up to the public. And they're going to, I guess, as part on the agenda, they're talking about collecting some data to see, presumably to see if there's any capacity and how they would regulate the capacity for the public. So that's today.
Okay. Just real quick, getting back to the CTC study and one of the options, I guess that was Bonfire, was a public-private partnership or something like that. or one of the other options that was not boundless. Relative to Brian's comment about extra bonding, one of the ways that after the system is built that the investors could get out is that if the town buys little pieces of it on
Sure.
an annual basis and for small bonding amounts, as exactly that, as their bonding capacity goes up because of the system, they can in fact borrow money, pay off the the venture capital investors who get out, and then slowly the municipality buys it over time,
Yep.
or buys a chunk of it over time, and that could be a viable way forward, but it involves somebody jumping in with a lot of investment at the beginning.
Yep.
It sounds complicated, but this is like a normal day at the beach for
Yeah.
people
No,
that people that do bonds.
I think they all recognize that. I think the discussion here in the beginning was just to get I think a baseline with the town. Initial conversation. That's all that was. So they got their baseline. Now it's time to move on.
Yeah. When that report does come out, I think kind of without comment, we ought to transmit it to the select board and say this is the situation in Falmouth. They can discuss it, and they'll say, well, that my guess is they'll say that mirrors where Bourne is on this. That's kind of the what I have heard from individuals, and it probably isn't going to change. So.
Right.
Yeah, and that I think is instructive. And if Falmouth does come up with a solution here, that may in fact be a kind of best practices and a way forward for Bourne at some point.
Mhm.
So that's as far as we're going to get with that.
Mhm.
Okay, let me get back to the agenda here. One moment. Okay, the next big item is revisions to our charge. And was everybody able to interpret the red line strikeout of that file that I sent? I also sent the originals.
I couldn't, when I looked at these three things, I see there was one that had a lot of blue font additions, and then there was one that says draft over it in big letters, and then there's one that says charges approved by the select board. None of these are dated, and I couldn't really tell which one was which.
Okay, the one that said revisions and that has draft is what was sent to me on July 16th. Okay.
So this was the select board's
Yes.
offering.
I think the longer one was I took that directly off of our website, and which was a PDF, and converted that to a docx file, and then I did a document compare of the two,
Yeah, I'm looking
and
for-
that's the file with all of the red line strikeout.
Okay, I didn't
Right,
get any red,
I've got it now. Yeah,
I didn't get any red line strikeouts in what showed up on my screen, but
right.
okay, so that would I can't even show it to you. Looks like that. I can't see it. Screw it. Never mind.
I do have it.
Okay. That's the one that it starts out it looks like it starts out with our original charge, and then it goes into this Mass General Laws Cable Advisory Committee stuff, which as far as I can tell has only marginal applicability to what we do.
Well,
Because,
again,
you know.
that is one of our legal responsibilities. That stuff at the beginning there.
Yeah, pardon me for being stupid about this, but why? Can't they constitute an advisory committee that does what they wanted it to do? Does it have to be in conformity with a Massachusetts thing on cable advisory stuff?
Well, for cable TV, it does. Jed, you've been on that committee before, and that's all that first section does is just reiterate what the legal requirements of a cable advisory committee are with regard to cable TV only, correct?
Right. I know that when they did the charge in the past, they just, rather than restating everything there, they just pointed back to the Cable Television Act, which authorizes the town, rather than put everything in writing like that. But essentially, that's the fact. Yeah, that's our regulatory authority that's passed down from the federal government.
Okay, well, that makes sense, but my concern was that, maybe I'm just a little too paranoid here, that they would use that as an excuse to limit what we do with respect to everything else that we do that isn't strictly cable. Do you understand my concern?
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. So I think there's a real bifurcation here because the cable stuff, which is locally regulated, is
Yes.
covered by the Cable Television Act, and it is what it is. And then
Mhm.
separate from that, you've got internet and phone, which
Yes.
come under a different regulatory authority through the FCC.
Which are not quoted
So they're
here.
completely separate. And
Uh-huh.
then, so I think it's appropriate to sort of, here's what you do in cable, and then here's what you do in internet, and they can be completely different sections that don't overlap.
We've
I hear you,
also
but I don't
acted
see
under
any.
that section already once at the direction of the select board when they told us to go and sort out about the high definition TV stuff as part of the cable agreement.
I understand that, but I don't see any parallel quotations from regulations regarding telephony and internet.
Because they don't exist.
Serenity.
They don't
Uh-huh.
exist.
Well then,
They don't
Yes.
exist. Yeah.
You
So-
know, we're in totally uncharted territory here. Basically,
Okay.
what I'm talking
Well,
about
maybe not
is
maybe not uncharted, but because Bourne has had internet included in its cable committee for decades in the past. As we've
No.
spoken to,
No.
past members have said that internet was on the committee's agenda in prior.
No, it's actually forbidden to be discussed. At the beginning of the cable committee formation, you're told that the breadth of or the scope of your discussion has to be limited to cable TV. Now, outside of those meetings, that group might have discussed, informally internet, but when the meeting is, when the committee is formed, you basically have to table all those discussions.
I might need to put
Okay.
you back in touch with Gene Curry because he said back in like the 90s they had worked
Sure.
out
No,
that
yeah,
mechanism.
yeah. No, I remember discussing it, but it wasn't really part of committee deliberation.
Okay.
okay. I'm
So
going to
is
move down
that
to the line that says the Bourne SciTac will and start talking about that from there on down.
Right,
Okay.
that's where I had concerns about A and B and the changes that were there.
Okay, let's go look at those again. Um,
Hmm.
So under subheading I, advise the select board relative to interactions with internet service providers for residential services and business services. Then they added A and B, hold public meetings, survey subscribers, ascertain existing providers' compliance with any agreement. This
Who
is all
added that?
as far as I can tell. And B,
Who
make
added that?
recommendations to the select board.
Oh, these are select board additions. Ah,
I think,
really?
hang on, I've got the same problem you have, Wendy. I'm going back and forth among several documents here.
This looks like it's in the original charge.
Yeah.
That was
this
there
is-
before. Okay.
Okay, but it looks like they're being deleted. Or no,
Oh.
see, that's where my confusion lies here.
One moment. The way the doc compare works is you start, at least the one I used was you start with the older document and then see what's changed with the new one that gets added in. I'm trying to get mine reopened here. I have too many windows open at the same time. I apologize.
Hmm.
Keepers. Give me 1 second here.
Okay, I think I'm figuring this out. A lot of these things that are marked deleted are not actually text being deleted. They're like spaces being deleted and page breaks and stuff like that. So the text stays as far as I can tell, except for this other one, which is what we've been.
Moving to a giant
What?
TV to put all three up.
I apologize. Give me 1 second here. Trying to close a few windows here. Get me some more bandwidth.
It would have been helpful if these pages were numbered too.
So, okay, so yeah.
Ah,
All right, so two. Yes. And now that I'm getting it, it's not as bad, it's not as different as I thought it was going to be. What they did was they added some more specific stuff having to do with internet services, whereas the original one was kind of vague.
Well, the original one was very general, and we put that in front of them, and they said, they looks kind of good. Okay, we'll go with that for a while.
Well, yeah, but it was really more aimed at a little bit more cable TV and less on internet.
the original
I-
was.
Right, that's the
Where
thing.
Yeah,
I'm just
And
seeing a
I'm
lot
looking at the-
deleted actually.
Well, I'm looking at what I think is page 2. It says deleted. Recommend possible alternatives to extend high-speed internet to interested residents and businesses in town, e.g., fiber service directly to the home, FTTH, blah blah blah. The committee will.
oversee efforts.
Oh, that goes there. That goes to there. Okay.
Instead of recommend possible alternatives, they changed it to oversee efforts to, as far as I can tell.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So, what's the difference?
I think that I'm gathering that they want us possibly, that they don't want us to necessarily be in supervision, just in a recommendation role.
Well,
Which
they
is what an
deleted
advisory committee
recommending,
does.
though. It looks like they deleted the paragraph that says recommending.
Right now, it just says oversee efforts.
Okay, that sounds like more managerial to me. And I thought
Mm.
that's what they didn't want.
Let me look at the other version again. Make recommendations. Right. Well, public meetings, make recommendations.
That apparently stays.
Well, I'm looking at the new version here, and I don't
It's me what I'm looking at.
see anything about oversee. This is really weird. Maybe Bob's comparison missed something.
Oh, wait a second. I got it.
Fine.
This is a separate document. This is what came out of it after you did the comparison. This was the result.
The red
Right.
line strikeout. Here's the problem I had to go through. I hope this didn't. That's one of the problems I had. The Doc X with the
I got it.
revised
Okay.
the revised charge had a
Yeah.
huge number of previous editorial changes embedded in it, and they all came out. Okay, they all appeared in the red line strikeout, so it became extremely confusing. And what I had to do is try to get rid of some of the ones that were already embedded here and just accept what they had and eliminate any of the past history.
Okay,
And
and
I'm
so
not
you
sure I
made
did that right.
so what I have this other thing I have in my hand is the new charge as approved by the select board which is the result of all of those deletions and substitutions and move arounds and stuff.
Right.
So that's what I should be looking at. This other thing
Yeah,
is,
exactly.
Yeah, right. I'm
In
going
fact,
to
why don't
bring
we
this
just-
up for a minute.
okay, that's
Yeah,
better.
I
Why don't we
brought this
just-
up for you, and now it should be a little bit simpler to see
That's the
what's
one.
going on here, because I had the same problem looking at the comparison. This is what this is the actual text of what they want to do.
This is their final, their next offering in the negotiations, I guess.
Right.
We are
Well-
still negotiating this, aren't we?
We will discuss this in September. Again, the salient part of this is from the Bourne, the SciTac will on down. So let's just talk, Jed, or John, just keep that up and we'll go ahead and just discuss this. Recommend possible alternative to extend high-speed interest to interested residents in town. Okay.
What's
that
the
has to
difference?
change.
Wait a minute.
Well, so what's the difference between recommend possible and oversee efforts?
Overseeing efforts, as I said, that's a managerial type word.
Well, here's the confusion.
Recommendations
These may have been
sounds-
reversed, okay? It may be that it treated this as the older version and the other one as the new version. So the oversee efforts, in fact, was in the old one, and I'm trying to find that right now. And
So I've got it up on a
recommend.
huge TV right now, side by side. So I'm looking at the proposed revised one, and the revised one says recommended.
Right.
And the old,
Which
the
is
approved,
What?
the currently active chart says over. Wait, hold on. This is so hard to follow.
This is nonsense, is what this is.
Yeah, why are we even debating this, the wording of this, when we have so much to do? It just,
Because they're trying to limit our scope of practice, and we need to know exactly what we're buying into.
yeah.
Well, again,
Basically,
you
what
heard
it seems
Anne
to
Marie
be
at the
saying
last
is-
meeting, that they
Yeah.
want us to focus on advising them about digital equity implementation and advise them complete the BEAD challenge and presumably advise them on what to do with what we get or don't get after we get through the BEAD challenge process, and we know which areas are unserved and underserved and might be eligible for grants.
Okay,
And
it
I got
looks,
that impression. That's not reflected in this, that I don't see. I mean, the only change that I see on the screen there, from what I guess John has that up,
Right.
is that the recommend versus oversee efforts. Okay,
Right.
but they changed that to recommend.
Right, which
Okay.
seems consistent with what Anne Marie told us their feeling was at their meetings.
Yeah. So we,
okay.
again, and Wendy is right. The oversee, which is what we asked for in the other one. In fact, they want to say, you guys don't oversee, you recommend to us because we oversee, and that's perfectly legitimate.
Yeah,
so
Yeah.
I think the concern here is because they've removed the sub bullets, that I think that's where this language change might be problematic. So they've removed generate performance testing, and they've removed investigate opportunities for fiber to the home. They've removed a bunch of stuff, which I think the oversee language was more appropriate. So I think this small change requires review of the bullet changes to see if it matters or not.
So, Jesus.
Like, for instance, the recommendation we had in there, make recommendations to the town about any consortium that is constituted for the purpose of owning, operating, and executing an agreement with providers.
Yeah,
That's not in there anymore.
okay, but I'm looking at it, and it doesn't say that it's deleted.
Okay, my red line strikeout may be backwards. So the underlined stuff is in fact what was in the old one, and what is crossed out here is in fact what is in the new one. So
Oh, Jesus.
I apologize for that.
That's okay. I'm easily confused, but
That's-
this is,
this is why I put the new version up, because I was confused too. and I
Yeah.
started reading it, and then I just realized, wait a minute, let me look at the unedited new version that they passed on to us. And basically, it's changing the responsibility from oversee to recommend, which seems legitimate and in line with their concerns of us not messing up the wheels of town administrative
Right.
responsibilities. That's all we recommend, and then they make a decision,
Okay.
taking our recommendations into account.
Okay, what I see up on the screen now is not what I have in my hand. Doesn't match anything that I have in my hand.
I can take this off. I will send you a
And
copy.
we might need to do a better red line strikeout to make sure we have an accurate side by side here, because I think there is differences when you, so I'm look on like a 70-inch TV right now. We've got the old one, the new one, and the attempt of old versus new. And I think we have issues in this old versus new, and we might have to, do another attempt to get a very, very accurate job of this. So
The only one that I'm just gonna do an overview of this. Under II of that, where it says oversee efforts. Okay. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Roman numeral 2, and there are
Roman numeral
7,
2.
and there's 7 sub things
The
here.
original had 7 sub parts underneath it.
Yeah.
And
And but those are not part of what they're proposing, or?
Wendy,
They've
I just
removed
sent
a
you
lot
a
of them.
copy of the revised charge.
All right. Let me
You
open that
should
up.
be in your mailbox.
Yeah.
And that just didn't occur to me what was happening until just when Bob mentioned it. He might have flipped it over, and then I said, "Oh, now it makes
No,
sense."
no
Okay.
wonder I'm confused. Come on, open
Yeah.
up. Damn it.
Roman numeral 2 has been reduced from 7 items to 2 items in the new one.
Well, it
Right.
may take a little while to open this because our internet service sucks.
Yeah, by
around
the way,
here.
those versions, all 3 versions were in the email that I sent.
Oh yeah, well I got them, but they're not congruent. They're not even comparable the way I'm looking at them. Okay, well this isn't going to open for a while, but I'll have to.
Well,
wait for it.
more to the point, I can tell you right now, the ones that were eliminated were C, generate new performance tests. D, monitor literature. E, investigate opportunities for fiber to home and fiber to business utility opportunities through the community. F, make recommendations to town about any consortium.
Yeah, I thought
G,
they'd hate that.
arrange to complete a detailed engineering design and cost estimate study.
Yeah.
All of those are gone.
Well,
Okay.
they do say monitor literature into 2B in the
No,
new.
that's true. Oh, that's right. Monitor literature is up there.
Right.
And let me see. The first one that was there was maintain accurate records. Okay.
Right, and that's still there. And I think what they did is folded the other stuff into just the 2 heading, into one long sentence, basically, as
Yeah.
best they could.
Well, it was all there before, so they changed the wording and then left a bunch of stuff. So I feel like this is a lot of work to update something when they can just tell us where their priorities are, and we just focus on the priorities instead of having to rehash the language here.
But they clearly don't want us to investigate opportunities for anything. Because they
Yeah, that's
said,
problematic because that's the scale required to fix the problem
Right.
potentially requires partnerships with other towns. Not potentially
Right.
will, the math doesn't work unless these solutions are scalable.
right, and
Right.
that's I think we should put E back in then. And I think we can still, why would they not want us to make recommendations about a consortium that makes things better? Why would they not be interested in hearing that?
Yeah, it doesn't make sense why you'd remove it because that's the best way to fix
Well,
the
that's
problem.
something we can bring up with them and say, we think
Yes.
you should include this.
And I
Because
can
obviously,
understand.
we've had this discussion before that the scale of the cost, if shared with other towns, the portion of the cost of Bourne would be significantly less.
We can forget the performance tests for now. And we can probably forget
Well-
doing the detailed engineering design because we're not going to be able to do that. But these other things have to stay.
Well, the performance testing, we've been trying to find a low cost way to do that and or a grant source to pay for it. Since it's necessary for other grant funding. So it's one of those things that kind of has to sit there until we find a way to utilize it, because it's one of those things that's like 100-to-1 return. If we can get speed tests to prove we need more funding, and do it cheaply, that's a game changer. So removing it seems like unwise, I think is the word. Given that MBI could one day say, okay, here's a bunch of money to go do speed testing, everybody needs to act on it. Like the amount of time to add that back into the charge versus the, effort to just leave it there.
If that occurs, we could always go to them and say, "Oh, could we add this back in now?" Because if we
But it'd
put
be
it in
like 3 weeks just to get on the agenda, and a lot of MBI's
Yeah.
programs are 30
I know.
days. So like
I
just to even get the
understand.
approval to move forward, take too long.
Can we, let me volunteer here, at least for Roman numeral 2, to come up with a revision that incorporates some of their changes that we know we're not going to get. For instance, arrange to complete a detailed engineering design and cost estimate. We're never going to have that unless it's going to be some provider who is going to do that, and with their investment money. But come up with others so that as needs and opportunities like speed testing or something else arise, we can report back to the select board and say this opportunity has come up, and here's our recommendation for it.
Yeah, looking at it, it almost seems as if they want to be provider neutral. It's the best politically correct way I can point it out. And that was what jumped out at me when I read all this stuff, is as if to say they want to be very careful of us rating various services one against the other. And I still think there should be something in there that just says something to the effect of, review proposals and past performance. I mean, it does say we're supposed to keep a record of issues and problems, but it doesn't necessarily. It seems to be avoiding the idea of saying, well, we'll recommend this provider over that one because they're going to give us fiber and the other one's going to give us cable. Something to that effect.
Remember, these were the same people that said we couldn't say anything about Comcast because Comcast had a contract with them and they would get sued for breach of contract or some fool thing like that. So that's where they're coming from on this. I
don't recall them saying that they thought they would be sued. I just thought they.
Oh, they did. They said that this would be like a breach of contract thing and we couldn't, blah, 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 blah.
They do not want to jeopardize current business relationships, which include price negotiations with existing providers, and that includes Comcast. It includes to some extent Verizon. So that's one of the reasons the school system would not do the speeds testing, is because they have a business relationship with Comcast, and they wanted to be neutral about it.
Then how do we communicate to them that if we're going to be gathering information about historical and current internet provider infrastructure and performance quality, they didn't cross that out? How are we going to do that without identifying the current providers?
I think there's a
very good question.
between...
Certainly something that ought to be brought up.
But they left that in, so I think they left it in.
Well, 1A says hold public meetings, survey subscribers, and ascertain existing providers' compliance with any agreement. I think they consider that within our charge, but that's different from necessarily recommending another provider or additional providers, plural, to supply service.
But didn't they leave that? Didn't they leave those two things in, or did those things that got?
It says recommend possible alternatives to extend high-speed internet directly to the home, but it's not.
Wait,
Again, it says to
Where are
extend
you?
high-speed internet to interested residents and businesses. It doesn't say replace existing high-speed internet.
uh,
And
Okay.
this may be very well what we've just mentioned, that they have a business relationship with these companies. We know already that they have one with Comcast and Verizon, and possibly one with Open Cape too. And I think they want to avoid being put in the position of supposedly of taking sides. So it's a very, I don't know, we might have to reach out to Anne Marie here and say exactly what is the limitation here, what is the concern? Because I get it, and I think maybe their language is a little too strong, and we could come up with something that's a compromise. Or maybe point out that any such recommendations would be made in an executive session, so that it would not necessarily become public.
yeah, they could do that.
Right. 'Cause
That
I
might
mean,
work.
right.
Come on, freaking open up.
To be honest, to be very frank, I don't think the administration is going to get us to the point where they're going to ask for our input on renewing, say, internet service from FiOS or something like that. When they've got a, say they have a 1, 2, 5-year contract. When that comes up for renewal, we are never going to see that or be involved in that at all. Okay. Nor will we even know when it comes up for renewal. That's my personal opinion. Okay.
Didn't we get a copy of some of their contracts at one point? I seem to recall.
After they had been negotiated and signed.
Yes.
One of the
So we
recommendations
could find
in
out when
the
they come up for renewal and then ask to be involved in the process. And we will be, my opinion is that we will be politely told that we're out of our lane again. Okay. And I think that's the attempt
interesting
on-
when the
on some of this.
commission recommended that they, the SciTech is a resource, a valuable resource in their report that they should be utilizing. So
Yeah. Hit it.
Yeah, what can I say? Again, let's just go down and talk about number 3, 4, and 5, which are one sentence each, and we had sub bullets under them in the past. So let me get back to the original here.
Okay. This I have. This thing that you just sent me. That I've got. Okay. What I'm looking for is, do we have our final response document that we would like to see in here?
No, we haven't done that yet.
We haven't done
Well,
anything
I
like that.
understand that. So that's why I don't know why I have all this other stuff here.
Well, I thought you didn't have a copy of the proposed.
Oh, I have the one that says draft in
Okay.
last
That's the
letter.
latest thing we have, basically. It's from them.
Okay, so all right.
If you take a look at number 3 on the draft, and it's got the watermark draft across it,
Yes.
what they've done is they've expanded number 3, identified potential grants, and they've said specifically A, B. B is digital equity plan implementation. Okay. And that's what that is limited to. Okay.
Yep. That's
yes, they've limited us from all grants down to just the 2.
that's
I
sort
think
of
we need a third bullet that said, as other grants arise, just a line under that. C, advise the select board on other grant opportunities as they arise.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And just add that in and very specifically to say, and request. Oh, and if they want, I'll talk to Anne Marie about it and request specific guidance on how SciTech should proceed in getting more information that the select board can act on. Basically,
well,
that's what they're looking for.
it says we will identify potential grants.
So,
So
but by adding sub bullets and the committee will, it appears
Yeah.
to be a limiting language. So
Yeah,
the
I'm
big
with you.
problem, the fundamental problem with grants in this space is they are extremely short fuse. So
Yeah.
we have to often act very, very quickly to gather the required info, figure out if it makes sense for town resources, and get it on the select board's agenda. That can, just to get on the agenda takes 3 weeks, and some of these grants are 30 days. So like, we have to have the job to be out there gathering the information, figuring out the burden to complete this application, what resources are gonna be needed, and then get it on the select board's agenda to decide to move forward or not. If we've got to additionally add 3 more weeks to see if this is within our scope, we are very quickly unable to be effective. So we need the language that allows us to go negotiate with the MBI, figure out the grant process, figure out what's needed, and get it in front of the select board.
They don't want to have us use the word negotiate because they see
Well,
that as their purview. You
If
can,
you look on the next, if you look on number 4, which has been deleted on the old one to the new one, provide liaison between the town and providers as necessary to carry out several provisions of this charge. So
how about,
we're not supposed to talk to providers. If we want to communicate with providers, we draft letters for the select board to consider sending to the providers.
well,
So
we've
exactly
been,
what you just said.
we've been doing that. We've been doing that already.
Right, but they eliminated our ability to offer our services to provide that liaison officially. So,
But that
we're
would
not supposed
eliminate
to go
Open
with it.
Cape as well, based on the language. So Open Cape, which has, a nonprofit who has done public good, just like in the bead challenge, and provided resources to towns, it would bar our ability to work with Open Cape. So that
Yeah,
doesn't seem like it's in the public's interest.
I don't see why providing liaison is usurping anybody's power. They don't have time to do this. If we provide liaison, we're collecting information, which we then report back to them for their action.
Now, maybe that needs to be reworded, but again, that's the problem. They don't want us representing ourselves to the ISPs as official representation from the town.
Right. What I would say is you just change the language to say provide liaison as determined by the select board. So that if they determine, or as requested by the select board. So when they say, hey, could you step in, as they have asked us to step in, for instance, recommending is how to spend the gap money, they say, okay, we need help with this. Could you do this? But we just don't do it on our own, that they have to request it.
But Brian's right. When they don't meet very often, or we can't even get on the damn agenda, sometimes that's going to be way too late to be effective.
Well, that's in terms of grants, but here this is to meet with providers would really be driven by them. So if they say, look, we don't have time for this, we need somebody to filter this, just like they are trying right now, for instance, with finding locations for the new firehouse. They're allowing that committee to talk to potential sellers of real estate.
Right.
So they could say, hey, look, we don't have time. Can you talk this over with, whatever provider, give us like a bullet point, and then we can take it from there so that we can help them. But only at their request.
Why wait? It's already, leave it in, because
it's already there,
it's already there. It already works. We can't sign any contracts. It's the same power as other committees have, up until the contract signing. We can gather as much info as we need.
Well, I think they're concerned with us doing this without their necessary oversight.
That, just if they eliminate it and we just continue doing what we're doing, and if a specific opportunity or question with the provider comes up, we just let them know that we're doing that. We'll note that in our minutes, send the minutes to them, and as necessary, we tell Anne Marie and say, look, we're specifically, because this particular issue has come up, we're trying to gather information from Verizon or somebody, and we will get back to you. Specifically
so
to
weird.
report back to them to provide advice. So if they want to
weird.
eliminate it, we just continue doing what we're doing.
Anybody ever been
It's
there?
completely necessary, and we're saying, oh, go ahead and delete it, but it's completely necessary to function in this space, doing anything related to this.
Mm-hmm. Anybody ever
Like,
been in
so even if it's
parental
deleted, like
control
we have to do it anyway.
Yeah.
To do this, so it's I don't know why removing something so trivial.
Well, at this point, we haven't done any direct negotiations with anybody. We have helped them author letters regarding certain issues, and we haven't exactly talked directly. We have attended public meetings being provided by the Verizon, but I just think that they want to just basically have the last say. And look, we either want you to talk to Comcast, Verizon, Open Cape, whatever, on this specific issue, or no, we'll handle it ourselves. That's all. I think
they
They
just
can always.
yeah.
But the question is, do
yeah.
we have to go to them first to tell them that we need to do that, or they should need to have us do that, versus we wait for them to figure it out on their own and then ask us? I think we have to take the initiative on at least notifying that these things
Well, notifying is
are
one
there.
thing, but to notify is one thing, and they said, you know, reports more frequently. That's not a problem, but to actually sit down and talk and represent the town, essentially, and I
Nobody,
think
nothing
that's
here
where
says,
they're
nothing
concerned.
here
Folks,
says that we're.
I have to
That might be a
interrupt for
good
2 minutes
compromise.
here. Allow me to interrupt. I just got a low battery notice on my laptop and I can't see my charger. So Jed, if you want to take the helm for just 2 minutes, I'm going to find my charger so that it doesn't shut down, since I'm the host of the meeting right now. I don't want to lose you guys. Be right
Okay.
back.
Go,
All right.
go.
Go ahead.
Maybe
But I-
the compromise is we add words that, you know, when we are liaising with providers, we immediately send notice to the select board.
timely.
Because, you know, it's
Timely.
gonna be in minutes anyway, and so we make sure those minutes are in their hands ASAP.
Yeah, but
Um,
let's say that they feel that for whatever reason, that something might be said in a meeting that in some way or another could compromise their business relationship with one of these providers, and that it seems to me what they're saying is, we don't want to take a chance on you saying something as a representative of the town when in fact the select board may have a different position. That's why I think it should be pointed, that it should just be them saying to us, okay, you know, so-and-so provider has come to us. Can you step in and talk to them, gather some facts, digest it, and pass it over to us? So we
The
do the,
provider isn't, I don't think the provider is gonna go to them.
oh, I think they would if someone came along. I mean, this is how it started originally down in Falmouth, right? I mean, they either they approached their open internet committee or whatever, and then eventually an MLP occurred. They were going to them directly rather than the town. And the town, you know, I watched that the town basically said, hey, you guys handle it. But in this case, they're kind of saying, we want to know, you know, they want control of any of their relationships with the town, with the providers rather.
When we had the cable committee that did the last contract, whenever we met with Comcast, it was the select board ex officio member who coordinated the meeting and attended with the committee.
Mm-hmm. And we still have that.
So maybe note that these will be. So what kind of coordinating was
Yeah,
involved?
so
Maybe
so
to elaborate.
basically it didn't, yeah, we didn't go to the select board and say, please give us permission to meet with Comcast. We went with actually in this particular case, it was the town manager. But so because they were a part of the committee, and they went off and then organized the meeting with Comcast. So we didn't have to get an explicit meeting with the select board in order to do that, but we had the select board member actually schedule a meeting.
Okay.
There's an idea. That's a good compromise.
How would you word that?
Maybe we leave the provision the way it is and say
We're looking about
SciTech
provision
will
for-
notify the select board so that they can nominate either town manager or a ex officio member to assist.
Okay, I'm looking at number 4 in the original charge where it says provide liaison. Is that where we're all talking about here? Is that where they're getting
Yeah.
fluffed up?
Yeah.
Okay. So how would you like to reword that?
Maybe leave it and we start adding. When
Um,
when in
the,
liaison with providers, SciTech will notify the select board so that they may nominate an ex officio member or the town manager to attend at their discretion.
okay, the select board will nominate an
Or
ex
may, not will,
officio,
may,
or may
may.
nominate an ex officio member to monitor, to participate.
To
I think
oversee.
participate, oversee, that's a good word, yeah. Okay. See, any discussions? Or any interactions?
Yeah.
Yeah, that
Okay,
way it takes a permanent burden off of them and becomes an optional one. If they deem it to warrant the time of the select board or the town manager, they can add them immediately, and we're okay with that. That's
yeah.
never been
Or
a
they could
problem.
they could just instruct their ex officio member who we already have to
Yeah.
go pay attention. And he or she may say, they're fine, and just let us go. But then we've had permission. Okay. All right, so so we're going to say provide liaison between town and providers as necessary to carry out the several provisions of this charge, which is basically making recommendations, gathering information, getting records, blah, blah, blah. And the select board may nominate an ex officio member to oversee any CTAC interactions with um, with providers.
Providers or potential providers.
Okay, potential or current providers. Okay. Okay, does that sound good?
I'm
So what
thinking we're
what
probably gonna end up making a draft and have to, have a
well,
discussion on it next week. So we're probably
that's
gonna
what
end up
I'm
having to assign somebody to,
Well, you know
that's
what?
what I'm doing.
Yeah.
I'm basically taking our suggestions and writing them in over on the same page as the old charge. So we come back with that.
Okay, I tell you what, Wendy, just to move this forward, I think we're pretty close to being done here. You have just
Yeah.
volunteered to do that. If you would try to incorporate some of the thoughts here, get a draft of this
Yep.
back to us, someplace identifying where the new text is going in. And then we will make sure that we have a further discussion of this with Anne Marie on the line to see what her thoughts about this are. And then at that point, we can come up with our
Mhm.
proposed revisions to submit to the full select board and get on their agenda
Yep.
to talk to them in September. Does that sound like a
Yep.
way forward?
No, yeah, I can do
Yeah.
that. Any additions or changes, I will just italicize them so we don't have to look about red or
Great.
blue or other stuff.
And if you want to call in other advisors on this, one or two of us,
Mhm.
feel free.
Oh, I
Again,
will if I have any questions.
you've got the helm on this particular task. Is everybody
Okay.
agreeable with that?
Aye, Captain.
Yeah, you
Uh,
just gotta keep it to no more than two other people if you bring them.
Don't talk to more than two other people.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
one thing we might want to discuss is because a bunch of the grants coming are gonna be digital equity related.
Mm-hmm.
The BEAD was more on the network building side. There's also a giant digital equity plan submitted to NTIA, so that is just beginning to start like NTIA is just beginning to have calls with states and anybody to explain what these programs are going to be. So this is, we don't even really know what those grants are going to look like, but as per usual, they're going to come fast and they're going to come with very little warning. Do we need to add language to handle that?
Well, I think we talked before on item Roman numeral 3, A and B were very specific, and if we put in a C that gives us advise the select board on other grant opportunities related to digital equity and other opportunities. Wendy, I'll leave it to you to
Yeah.
word that, but that
Got it.
basically says if something else comes down the pike, we can provide advice to the select board on pursuing that, not pursuing it, or how to proceed. So
Mhm.
it isn't limited to the $100,000 of the digital equity plan or the $70,000 of the digital equity plan implementation. You know, if something else comes down, okay, here's another opportunity to pay for some of the stuff that where the $100,000 is not going to cover it.
Okay, what I would say is inform and advise the select board on other potential grants as or act current and or current and potential grants as they arise, for example, digital equity and other. How's that sound?
And other I guess digital equity as and also state specifically improved connectivity opportunities.
And
Yeah, and so the BEAD
Mhm.
money, I think, is both, I believe it's if for both pots. So the state digital equity plan is what they plan to do with the leftover money, so to speak. So,
Right.
and seeing that we're about to get hoodwinked on the money for
Mhm.
network building, it's going to be digital equity is next.
Okay, got that.
Okay.
And then report to the select board quarterly, and so that's the same old, same old. Potential grants. On the old charge and 2, we'll go back to do we go back to changing this to recommend versus oversee?
Oh no, leave that. Leave that. I mean, you know, clearly they don't want us to manage anything. That's
So
fine.
you want me to leave it as oversee?
No, leave it as recommend in the new draft.
Okay, that's what I'm talking. Because I'm
I
what I'm doing
apologize.
is I'm marking up the old charge to reflect our new our return on the negotiations. So it's recommend to extend recommend efforts to extend high-speed internet to all residents and businesses and towns, e.g. Fiber directly to the home. Committee will A and B we're keeping. We're ditching we're keeping the monitoring literature. I'm going to fold that into B. The performance tests as if needed for further grant funding. Or do you want to like just leave that out for now?
Uh,
I think we need to leave it in. There's such an integral part of BEAD and
It's just say
future grant.
something like instead of just generate performance, speed, and other performance tests as needed
Obtain additional funding.
to qualify for additional funding.
Oh, good. Okay.
You know,
To
something very,
qualify.
very broad instead of if the existing data are insufficient or providers fail to provide when requested as needed. You know, that's where I think they objected to those words. Again,
Okay.
that jeopardizes or could jeopardize a business relationship with an existing provider. And we
Okay,
would
so
want to
generate new performance tests if as needed for further to qualify for further grant funding.
yeah,
Okay. Monitor the literature. We
that stays the
could
same.
we'll put that up and gather information, or we can leave it the same. I don't care. I don't think it makes a difference. We're not we do still want to leave in investigating opportunities for fiber to home, fiber to business, utility opportunities. That's extra words. Yeah, okay.
What bullet is this? I'm trying to find.
It's in the old one. It's
it's
Roman numeral
old
2,
charge.
number E.
Yeah. Says investigate opportunities for fiber to home and fiber to business utility. throughout the extra word opportunities throughout the community, including strategies, cost analysis, and project planning. Does that sound too scary for them?
I would just eliminate including everything after including.
Oh, okay. All right.
And investigate, I would say investigate and report on opportunities.
Yeah, because we got
Investigate
the study from Falmouth coming soon, so we're gonna want to look at
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, we want to just pass that along. And if they want us to get our read on it, that's fine. If they want to just see it, we'll just send it to them. But I guess an investigate and investigate and advise the select board on opportunities. You know, just very clearly that the job is advice.
Okay. Then we can just say advise the select board on these opportunities because we can't advise them unless we investigate them,
Right.
right?
And then
Yeah.
I'm okay with eliminating F and G. Make recommendations on any consortium.
Yeah, that's just going to scare them.
Okay,
Um,
and arrange to complete a detailed engineering design and cost estimate. You know, that's just not going to happen. So I'm happy to delete that.
Yeah. So we're going to eliminate F, which is recommendations about a consortium.
How's that gonna work on BEAD when we come time to grant applications?
Yeah, because they
If let's put it this way, if Falmouth or somebody were to approach Bourne as part of a consortium, they're going to go to the select board, who are then going to ask us to do something. Okay, that's how it's going to work. You know, we're not going to sit at the table at the MLP and they'll say, "Gee, does Bourne want to participate?" And Jed is you know, clearly not empowered to raise his hand and said, "Yeah, well, I'm here to represent the town and we're interested." You know,
no,
they
but
don't
what
want
he
to
but what he would say is, let me give you the contact information for the select board so they can discuss this with you because I'm sure they will be interested.
I wouldn't even say that. They, you know,
Yeah.
Jed knows to do that.
Yeah.
The MLPs know to do that. The business, you know, Boundless or somebody else knows to do that. And if they want to come back to us for our recommendation on this or our input on this, that's fine.
Could we say refer any inquiries about such a consortium to the select board for their direct action?
No, I think that's
Just don't-
redundant. I mean,
don't
you know,
even- don't even
our
mention it.
job is to advise,
Okay.
and you know, I don't think they would kill us. They would probably disband us if we did anything that said we represented the town to any other entity.
Yeah. Okay. And forget the engineering design. Okay, and
Right.
then 3, identify potential grants to carry out any provisions of this charge, which comes from their submission, which is advise the board on BEAD, and digital equity, and we're going to add a C, which is inform and advise the select board on other grants as they arise, for example, digital equity and increased connectivity opportunities.
Right.
Yes?
Yep.
And then 4 is reporting. Okay, got it.
Okay, everybody more or less happy with that general guidance to
Yeah.
Wendy? Thank you, Wendy, for doing that.
Yeah, I think it's a good start, and we'll have to see what the response is. And again, hopefully Anne Marie can have a look at it, and she has a little more insight into what they're thinking.
Can
And
smooth the
help us.
way, perhaps.
Yeah, right, exactly. Have a
That
little.
doesn't create a quorum, right? If Wendy had circulated to 2 other people and Anne Marie because she's not voting,
Correct.
that isn't an issue? Okay, just was
Yeah.
just a technical
And
question.
and again,
So what-
you know, Wendy, go ahead and you know, work this over in the next week or two, and like a week before the meeting, let's circulate this to Anne Marie and say, hey, here, we want to discuss this in our meeting on what's today, 15th, on the 29th, right? Is that right?
Okay.
We are going to delay, we are going to use a 2-week window here, if everybody's okay with that.
Yep.
Yeah, sure. 8/29. Okay, you don't, I should not share this with any of you guys too? Well, you already know what it's
You
in
can
it.
share it
because-
as long as we don't comment on it. It's completely legal. You can send
You
it
know,
out.
when you send it, when
No,
you
no,
have the
no.
draft, when you have the draft sent to Anne Marie, CC the other four of us.
And CC, okay.
Yeah, at that point, it's okay.
Right.
Yeah,
But
and
we
just
can't,
say,
at that point, it's, you know, so there's no further contribution coming from anybody.
right,
Okay.
It's being distributed strictly for review to be discussed at the meeting.
in advance
Gotcha.
of the meeting, correct.
What we do for fun. Okay, what else is on our agenda? Anything?
That's the end of the
No.
agenda.
That's the end of the
Yeah.
agenda.
Hallelujah. Okay. Good deal.
Here's the next agenda.
Is by my arithmetic, it's the 29th, correct?
Yeah, I got the 29th, 9 a.m.
Oh, that's my sweet husband's birthday.
Okay,
I took, the only thing I took the discussion
89
about the
years
open meeting
old.
law out, but everything else I left in.
All right.
Anything else we need to add?
well, you want to leave the connection core in there, or take it out just for,
Brian
It-
said he wanted to talk about it.
Yeah,
leave
I
it
think
in.
we want to circle back with them because I think their contact at MBI is Josh, and
Well,
Josh
that-
isn't on any
That's
of the
right,
other
that's right, yeah.
projects. We probably, if
Good.
Josh, like putting a feeler out to Josh wouldn't be adding to MBI's plate because he's not
Very
otherwise
good.
assigned to the other issues. So we should probably do that before burying this for the year.
Okay. Leave it for
Okay.
one more.
Okay,
Anything
with that,
else?
I'm going to entertain a motion to adjourn.
So
Second,
moved.
Okay, Wendy moves and John seconds. Roll call vote. I'll go around my screen. Jed,
Yes.
John,
aye.
Wendy,
Yep.
Brian,
Yes.
and Bob, the chair. Aye. Okay. With that, I think we got a lot accomplished today, folks. Thanks you again for your attention to this, and we are moving forward. We'll see what next drops on BEAD when we meet next on the 29th. We'll have a
Okay.
long
Okey-dokey.
discussion then, I'm sure. Okay, thank you
Bye.
all.
You.
I'm going to sign off.
Thanks.